All right, so are you ready to dive deep on a bird that you see everywhere but probably don't even think about?
Hmm. Let me guess.
The red-winged blackbird.
Oh, interesting choice. Yeah. I bet by the end of this deep dive, you'll look at them in a whole new way.
That's the goal. I was just thinking, I know they're common, but preparing for this, I was like, wow, they're really everywhere.
Yeah.
The video pointed out they're all the way from Alaska down to Central America. So
It's crazy, right?
what's up with that? Are they just like masters of adaptation or
Yeah. That's exactly it. The
not?
red-winged blackbird is like the king of making itself at home. You've probably seen them in marshes,
Oh, yeah, for sure.
but also parks, roadsides. They even hang out in farm fields, which we'll talk about later, can cause a bit of trouble sometimes.
Okay, so adaptable check. But before we get into all that, can we talk about how the males look like they're dressed for a fancy party
Huh? Yeah.
and the females are rocking the camel look?
Hmm.
What's the evolutionary story there?
Good question. So the males with their sleek black feathers and those bright red and yellow shoulder patches.
Those are called epaulets, right?
Yes, epaulets, exactly. They're all about being seen, attracting mates, defending territory. It's a visual thing.
Makes sense.
The females, on the other hand, they need to blend in, especially when they're nesting. So that mottled brown plumage helps them just disappear into the reeds and
So
grasses.
it's like she's got a built-in invisibility cloak?
Exactly.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
But wouldn't you think the males would be easier targets for predators being all flashy like that?
You'd think so, right? But those bright colors actually serve another purpose.
Okay, how so?
It's like a signal to predators saying, hey, look at me, I'm strong and healthy, I can afford to be this flashy because I'm not worried about you.
It's like they're saying, come at me, bro.
Yeah, to both rivals and predators.
And speaking of bold moves, we got to talk about that conklary song.
Oh yeah, everyone knows that one.
Everyone listening can probably hear it in their heads right now.
For sure.
So what's the point of that, besides maybe driving us humans a little crazy during mating season?
Well, you're right. It is part of attracting a mate, but it's also about setting boundaries. Think of it as the red-winged blackbird's way of saying, this is my turf, back off.
Makes sense.
They're serious about their territory, especially during breeding season.
Yeah, I bet I wouldn't want to mess with a red-winged blackbird protecting his home turf.
No.
But is that their only song? Do they just sing that one tune over and over, or can they sing other stuff too?
Oh, they've got a whole vocabulary of chirps, whistles, and trills.
Yeah.
They use different calls for alarms, warnings, and even just chatting with each other. It's like their own little language.
Whoa, so they might have gossip about the best places to find bugs or something.
Uh-huh. Who knows?
Now, this is where things get a little scandalous. The video mentioned polygyny. Can you break that down for us?
Sure. So polygyny basically means one male mates with multiple females.
Oh, okay.
And in the red-winged blackbird world, this creates some serious competition among the males.
Yeah, I can see that.
They're not just trying to impress the ladies with their looks and songs, they're also fighting for the best territories, prime real estate with lots of food and good nesting spots.
So even in the bird world, it's all about location, location, location.
Uh-huh, yep, pretty much.
And the females get to be picky, right? They choose the males with the best territories.
Exactly. The female red-winged blackbird is in charge. She's looking for a male who can provide a safe and resource-rich environment for her and her future chicks.
Smart. Okay, so she's picked her mate. What happens next? Is it teamwork, making the nest, and raising the babies?
Well, when it comes to nest building, the males don't really help.
Really?
Yeah, that's pretty much all on the female. She weaves this incredible nest out of grasses and cattails, usually suspended over water.
Wow, over water.
Yeah, for extra protection from predators.
That's a smart mama bird. But what about once the babies hatch? Do the males pitch in with feeding and all that then?
They do help with feeding the nestlings, but the female still does most of the work.
That makes sense. She put in all the effort laying and incubating the eggs.
Exactly.
It's a tough job being a bird mom. So we've got territorial males, picky females, and hardworking moms raising the next generation.
It's a whole soap opera out there.
I know, right? But what are they all eating? Are they strictly bug eaters, or do they have more diverse tastes?
Well, that's another interesting thing about them. They're what we call opportunistic omnivores, meaning their diet changes with the seasons.
Yeah.
In the summer, they're all about insects like grasshoppers and caterpillars.
Okay.
But come winter, when bugs are scarce, they switch to seeds and grains.
Wow, so they're flexible eaters.
Very. And that's why you might see them near water one day and then in a farmer's field the next.
Yeah, so they eat crops.
They do.
But wouldn't that make them like public enemy #1 for farmers? How do they manage to stay so abundant if they're raiding the fields?
Yeah, it's a tricky situation. Red-winged blackbirds can be a farmer's best friend or their worst nightmare. It all depends on the time of year and what they're hungry for.
Okay, so in the summer, they're eating all the bugs that would be munching on the crops, right?
Yeah.
Like a natural pest control.
Exactly. They're doing the farmers a huge favor, and the farmers definitely appreciate that.
But then winter rolls around,
Yeah.
the bugs are gone, and suddenly these helpful birds are looking at the farmer's grain like it's dinner.
Haha, pretty much.
Yeah.
And that can cause some problems, especially when you get big flocks descending on the fields.
Oh, man, I bet.
Farmers have been known to use all sorts of crazy tactics to scare them off, like propane cannons and even recordings of predator birds.
Wow, it's like a bird war out there. But I guess I get it. Farmers have to protect their crops.
Okay.
Let's switch gears for a minute. The video talked about all these cool adaptations red-winged blackbirds have. We talked about the camouflage for the females, but what about those red epaulets on the males? Those aren't just for looks, right?
Oh no, definitely not just for show. Those epaulets are like a multi-tool for signaling.
A multi-tool.
Yeah, like they can actually control how much red they show off.
No way.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. They can puff them up to look tough or kind of hide them if they're trying to avoid a fight. It's all about communication.
So they're not just trying to impress the ladies. They're actually using those red patches to talk to each other.
Exactly. It's like their own secret code. It just goes to show how much we still don't understand about bird behavior. We tend to think they're simple creatures, but there's a lot going on in those tiny brains.
It makes you wonder what other secret signals they're using. Okay, so we've covered their looks, their songs, their love lives, their relationship with humans. What about their population? I mean, they seem pretty abundant, but are they facing any threats?
That's a good question. You're right. They're one of the most common birds in North America with something like 200 million individuals.
Wow, 200 million. That's incredible.
But even with those huge numbers, their populations have been declining in some areas, mainly because of habitat loss.
Oh, that's sad.
Yeah, wetlands are being drained for development, which takes away their breeding and feeding grounds.
You'd think with that many birds, they'd be safe. It just goes to show that even common species can be vulnerable.
Exactly. And it's not just habitat loss. They're also affected by pesticides, which can poison their food. And then there's climate change, which is messing with their migration patterns and making it harder to find food and good nesting spots.
Man, that's a lot to deal with. It makes you appreciate how tough they are, you know?
I agree. They're out there every day facing all these challenges and still managing to thrive.
Speaking of challenges, have you ever seen their migration? I've heard it's quite a sight.
It's really something else. Huge flocks darkening the sky. It's amazing.
Yeah, I've never seen a full migration myself, but I've heard they fly at night.
They often do. And get that they use the stars to navigate.
Wait, they use the stars? That's cooler than any GPS. How do scientists even know that?
It's incredible, right? Scientists have done tons of research on bird migration. They use radar tracking banding studies and even tiny geolocators to track the birds' movements. It's a whole field of science, and we're learning new things all the time.
That's mind-blowing. They're flying thousands of miles sometimes over open ocean with brains the size of a pea. Okay, last question before we move on. How long do these birds actually live?
Well, the oldest red-winged blackbird on record lived for about 15 years.
15 years. Wow, that's longer than I thought.
But most of them don't live that long. The average lifespan is more like 2 to 4 years.
Yeah, I guess life as a bird is pretty dangerous.
It is. They face predators, habitat loss, all sorts of things, but it makes their success even more impressive, right?
Definitely. I'm starting to see them in a whole new light.
Yeah.
They're tougher than they look. But before we wrap up this part of the deep dive, is there anything else interesting about red-winged blackbirds that we haven't talked about yet? Any fun facts or weird quirks?
Let me think. Oh, I know this one's pretty funny. Did you know that during nesting season, some males will pretend to have a broken wing if a predator gets too close to their nest?
Wait, what? They fake an injury?
Yeah. It's a distraction tactic. They'll flutter around on the ground acting all helpless to lure the predator away from their chicks.
That's amazing. Talk about dedicated parents.
Right. It's really remarkable. It shows just how intelligent and resourceful they are.
Okay, that is officially my new favorite, red-winged blackbird. In fact, I'm going to be watching for that next spring when they come back to my area. We'll be back after a short break to finish up our deep dive into the world of the red-winged blackbird. Stay tuned. Wow, that broken wing trick is just wild. It really makes you realize how much we underestimate birds.
I know, right? Like, they're actually thinking ahead, planning, and taking risks to protect their young.
It's incredible. So we've talked about how adaptable these birds are, but are we pushing them too far with all the changes we're making to the environment?
It's a tough question. They can handle a lot, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But there's a limit to how much they can adapt.
Right.
Losing wetlands is a big problem because that's where they like to breed.
Right.
And then there are all the pesticides we use, which can end up poisoning them.
It's easy to think, oh, they're everywhere, they'll be fine. But this deep dive has made me realize that even common species can be in trouble.
Yeah, you're right. We tend to take them for granted, but they're part of a delicate balance, and what affects them affects the whole ecosystem.
So what can we do to help? I mean, I'm not out there draining wetlands, but are there things we can do in our own yards?
Absolutely. Even small things can make a difference, like planting native plants that provide food and shelter for them.
Okay.
And if you have a bird bath, make sure it's shallow with some rocks for them to stand on. They love a good bath.
Good to know. I'm going to have to add some native plants to my garden. So after all this research, what do we still not know about red-winged blackbirds? What are scientists still puzzled by?
Oh, there are still so many mysteries. Like we talk about how they navigate by the stars, but how exactly do they do that? What's going on in their brains that lets them use the stars as a map? We still don't have all the answers.
It's like they have this ancient knowledge passed down through generations, and we're just starting to figure it out.
It's amazing, right? It just goes to show how much there is to learn about the natural world.
I think that's a great takeaway. So the next time you see a red-winged blackbird, take a second to really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Think about everything we've learned, their beauty, their resilience, their incredible journey.
And remember, even the most common creatures can have extraordinary stories to tell.
That's it for our deep dive into the world of the red-winged blackbird. We hope you've enjoyed learning about these fascinating birds with us.
Thanks for listening.
And until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep appreciating the amazing diversity of life all around us.